Well guys, it happened. Anyways, he can be rather impulsive, and I'll just turn it around so you can see. Yep, that's a Z06 2024 with a Z07 handling package, performance package. Gives you the Aero upgrade, which is going to give you the spoiler, side skirts, and front splitter all in carbon. It's going to give you the carbon ceramic brakes there. I'll show you later. And then it's also going to give you their Z07 8% stiffer race suspension tune on the already stiff MagnaRide suspension system. Gives you no performance upgrade, but it's all handling, track, reasoning, and capabilities. So this is a Z06, which means it is the 5.5 liter flat crank V8 that screams 670 horsepower. I think most people are seeing anywhere from 590 to 600 horsepower at the wheels. Now, Jason has owned Corvettes in the past, so that's a little bit to that heritage. You know him, he likes to stick it to his memory. He had the Mustang first car. I don't know what number the Corvette was, but he definitely had one growing up. Here's a close-up of those carbon ceramic brakes, 15s all around. Just so you know, that's a 21-inch wheel, whereas the fronts are on 20s. They are on Cup 2Rs. Good old Michelin Cup 2R, pretty slicks. This sucker is used. It's got 2,700 miles on it, but I mean, it's all but mint condition. We're gonna be painting it, so it's gonna, any of the defects that we do find will be obsolete. Interior-wise, Jason is getting rid of those yellow seat belts. He's also getting rid of any of this yellow pinstriping, which is just a vinyl. Let's get in. This does have the comp seats, which are also known as the GT3s. There we go. Damn, that's pretty. So we got infotainment. Here's all of our creature comfort controls, cup holders, drive mode, drive gear here, paddle shifters, the Z button here, traffic avoidance there. So I was in touring. I'm gonna switch over to the sport mode. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there is an audible difference in the exhaust note. And you'll notice these little graphs telling you the performance output of each mode. Okay, so let's go into track mode. Boom. Track mode. You can see our tachometer goes into race mode. Initially, we had a problem with this sensor from the dealer, and it's working now, so that's a good sign. Got some extra gauges here. Oil temp, transmission oil temp, and then oil pressure, which is important, as we know. We love that number, so we'll have to pay attention there. And then we have coolant temp down below. Over here we have fuel, nothing critical. And then you can change what this screen is gonna show. Most of the time it's on performance, there we go. Lap timer, accelerometer, there it is. So you can get an accelerometer, which I think is super critical in the track modes. Traction control off button, there is one here, just so everybody knows. Other than that, some funky things. This is how you open the door. There's your door open button. Lock and unlock is up here. Windows down and up. This is a hard top. The top is removable in this one. Let's just put it that way. Back there is the engine. Oh, so gorgeous. There's the beautiful engine. You can hear it back there. So lovely. This is the car, guys. Crazy. Well, I'm in some traffic, so I thought I'd talk to you guys. So by now you've probably seen that I've got a C8 in the back there. It was obviously the better choice. So for us, it was time for a new platform. Now, I think I mentioned, if you didn't already see it, that Jason does have some history of Corvette. I'm sure I'll get him to talk about that. But what it boils down to is, I mean, the C8 is the next best American-made platform that we can go with. I mean, Jason loves his V8s. He loves his engine. Could he go electric? Could he go, you know, with a 6, an inline, a boxer? There's lots of different options, quite possibly even better options for the price in the grand scheme of things, to get what Jason wants out of the feeling of the racing and to be able to maintain it as OEM for the most part. The C8 was the next best option. That was an evolution process that was going to happen regardless. Two middle-aged guys having
it's Christmas.
Yeah. Having their midlife crisis, driving a race car on the street. Oh, it's convertible, by the way. Wow, as convertible as we need it to be. So yeah, Jason, what are we driving today?
Not a Dark Horse. The Dark Horse is going goodbye. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep it on the track. So we thought about a lot of different vehicles that we could get for the track, and we ended up choosing a C8 Z06.
What were some of the other vehicles that you had thought about?
Porsche. I'm a pretty big dude. I think fitting in a Porsche probably wouldn't have been too good. Audi R8, you know, older Corvettes like a C7 or something.
And not to say that we didn't want to also continue possibly down the Mustang trail, but the next best thing was
A Shelby. Yep.
And Shelby GT350, I mean, it just, for the bang for the buck, it didn't equate to what the performance and track readiness that you really wanted out of it was.
Yeah, and their new 350 is not like their old 350s, because their new 350 is a supercharged, right?
Correct.
Which the traditional 350 Shelby is not. It's pretty much a GT500 without the supercharger. This one, we're 670 horsepower, naturally aspirated, flat plane crankshaft motor, so I mean it's putting out a lot of horsepower. Just driving it on the street, haven't taken it too fast yet, wink wink, legally speaking, but it's a lot more power. And the crazy thing is you can push the power a lot more than in the Dark Horse. So in the Dark Horse, you know, it's a front engine in the Dark Horse, obviously. A lot harder to give it full power from the start because the back end of the car is so light. This, you know, mid-engine, most of your weight's in the back. I don't know what it is, what, 2/3 of your weight's in the back. Yeah, right over the motor, or right over the, you know, the wheels. So, and the wheels in this thing are gigantic. So they're, what, 345s in the back. So, I mean, I don't know what it is. What's that
Dark
equate to?
Horse was 315.
Yeah.
And this is a 345 on a 21-inch wheel.
Yep, and 20s in the front. So we got carbon ceramic brakes. We got the Z07 package, which is, you know, a lot more made for racing. We got all the Aero package, all carbon fiber. So this Z06 we got has the Z07 package, which is pretty neat, really. I mean, it's got a lot of extra stuff. 8% more stiffness in our suspension.
Which is the MagneRide system already. So it's already an adaptable system.
Yeah.
But it gives you 8% more stiffer suspension tuning made for the track.
Yeah, and then we got the carbon fiber Aero package, which comes with that, which is going to be, you know, carbon fiber for the chin in the front, splitter for our rear wing, our side skirts, and then we've got carbon ceramic brakes, which are, you know, pretty neat. Hopefully we don't have to replace them too much because they're, what are those, like $2,000 a rotor?
Yes.
Something like that, but I think they last a lot longer. They don't get as hot.
And they have a whole lot less kinetic inertia.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat. We did all that. And then this car, you know, many of you may not know, so the normal C8 obviously is a completely different motor. The Z06, we got a different motor that we just spoke about, but we have, the vehicle's actually wider, which was an interesting thing. We'll show some footage of it in the trailer. Chris went and picked it up, and it's a lot wider. I say a lot wider. Was it like an extra 3.5 inches or something?
Yeah, I think.
Which is a lot wider when already the Mustang was pretty tight in the trailer. You know, we're thinking we got maybe an inch clearance on either side when it goes in the trailer with the wheel wells.
Funny story about the whole wider car. When I got online, I looked up C8 Corvette. I find the diagrams, I find the measurements, and I put that into my CAD program that I had already drawn up to verify that everything was going to be fit and finished for the trailer to sit the Dark Horse in. So I overlaid, and I'm like, wow, great. You know, this car is slightly smaller. The mirrors stick out about the same, but everything else seemed to be smaller. Then I go and I put the dang car in. When I went and picked it up, it was literally practically against the wall. At first, it didn't really register to me until Jason had told me a little bit later that, oh, by the way, the Z07 or Z06 packages of the C8 are wider base than the original to accommodate for those bigger tires. But it was crazy how much of a difference that made in the trailer, to the point where now, you know, we're gonna have to do some extra modifications to that trailer just to make sure that we don't end up scratching or hitting a wall, and
mirrors and stuff.
Adding mirrors so that we can, and making it so that we can drive up still without too big of an issue. We were looking at it the other night. I think we have a total of 3 inches of clearance off of the fender wells inside with the front of this car. Backing it in isn't even an option. So the front of this car has about 3 inches total clearance. So that's 1.5 inches on a good day on both sides. So if you overcompensate one side just too much, it's not going to be enough.
So the funny thing is, when we picked this up, and I say we, I was on vacation up in Georgia, and we happened to find this one. Again, we were looking for the Z07 package, which is kind of hard to find. There's not a lot of them out there. There are out there, but there's not a lot. Most of them don't have it because it was an expensive upgrade. So almost an extra 20 grand with tax, right? Just for the Z07 package. So a lot of people didn't opt for it. If you're not going to track the car, it's not really something you'd probably really want because it stiffens up the suspension and stuff like that. Stuff you wouldn't really need, right? But for us, more tracking, you know, we want it. So we found it in Georgia. I did the entire deal. The car was in Sarasota. So paid for it, sight unseen, you know, obviously had them send video and stuff, and it was at a Rolls-Royce dealership. Someone had turned it in. It only had 2,500 miles on it. Less than a year old. A guy had bought it and then sold it. Say great deal. Still a lot of money. 130,000. So Chris went and picked it up and drove all the way there, picked up the trailer, dropped off the Mustang out of it because we still have that right now. We're in the process of getting rid of it. He went and picked it up, dealt with them there, and then came all the way back. And then I still wasn't home for a few days. So he got to drive it first. He got to go zoom first in it, sending me pictures and stuff, and it's cool. So when I got home, obviously it was in my garage. And it's loud. It's very loud, especially when it first starts. So Chevy, actually, when they were building this motor, you know, they really researched a lot of motors and trying to figure out how they were going to create as much power as they could. From what I read was that they actually purchased a Ferrari, used Ferrari's motor, took it apart, researched it, figured out how they could make more power out of it, which they did, and then created this motor. I think they spent 8 years in building it. So this motor came out in 2023 would have been, right? Yeah. It was when the Z06 package came out. So this one's a 24. Obviously we're in 25 now, so this car's a year old. So it's neat. So anyway, I was saying that how loud it is. So when I got home, you know, again, I hadn't driven the car yet. Chris already had it. We weren't getting home till 1 o'clock in the morning because we were a bit on vacation. I hadn't seen the car. I told my wife, I said, well, when I get home, I'm going to take in the car for a ride. It's 1 in the morning. And she goes, no, you can't because our son's going to be sleeping. I said, yeah, I'm telling you, I'm starting that car when I get home. So I started the car. He woke up, but it was okay.
I know that in my previous video when I picked it up, I remember mentioning that the reason the Dark Horse was purchased and the Mustang was purchased was because that was Jason's first car. And then, you know, progressing into this new platform, it was obvious that Jason was going to potentially at least attempt to stay with a platform that he's familiar with, and sure enough, he's had a Corvette. So I'm going to have him talk to you guys about his first Corvette.
So it's neat. So I love cars, if you guys don't know. I've owned a lot of vehicles. I've owned Rolls-Royce Ghost. I've owned a lot of German cars, you know, Mercedes. I've owned a 5-ton military truck. I've owned Explorers and Mustangs, and so Corvette. So two things. One, I've always liked Corvette. The reason we didn't choose it in the beginning because I wasn't planning on spending $150,000 on a track car. That would be one. And two, Ford was my first car, and so kind of bringing that heritage back to my first vehicle. You know, at the time I couldn't afford a V8, and so to be able to, as life has gone on, obviously be able to buy the Dark Horse was neat. Although we couldn't keep it on the track, so that's why we're here. But I was probably 9 years old, and my dad had picked me up early from school, went to the front office, he did, and picked me up, so we had to walk out to the car. And so he comes out into the parking lot, and there's a red 1980 Corvette. This is probably in 1994, something like that. So, you know, my dad usually bought used vehicles. But anyway, there's a red Corvette and T-top, and my dad's, man, that's a really nice car, acting like it's not his. And I'm like, yeah, that's sweet. And then he walks over and he opens the door, and it's his car, right? So that's the first introduction I'd gotten to a Corvette, was a 1980 red Corvette. I was really sad when my dad sold that. He had traded it in years later for a 1973 Mercedes little SL. But then a couple years later, he was missing the Corvette again, so he bought a 1972 all-white Corvette. My dad still has that, and that car actually is a neat car. He had that car ever since I was, you know, a kid. I was probably a teenager, and he actually let me take that car to prom, which is pretty neat. I may or may not have snuck that car out a couple times when he was out of town. And I may or may not have learned how to drive clutch on that car without him knowing. That car is still around. And then now my dad has a couple C5s. He's got a coupe and then a convertible. So my dad's got 3 Corvettes. So my dad, when I bought this, he said, well, finally you come back to this. So, and I say come back because I loved that 72 Corvette so much. When I was in my 20s, I had bought a 1977, which was also a C3 Corvette. The one I got was a coupe, not a convertible. My dad's is a convertible. And in 77, they weren't as collectible. The 72 has chrome bumpers in the front and rear, which 72 I think was the last year they did that for front and rear. Mine was still was fiberglass. So, but I had that one. It was a black with a red stripe down the middle. It was a really neat car. I had that for several years, and then it sold it. And then so now went to the C8. So it's just completely different. The Corvettes of those era, the C3s, you know, they're quick, but they weren't anything you'd brag about on a track. But now comparing to this, it's literally like a supercar. I mean, seeing this thing perform against Ferraris and, you know, Audis and Porsches, and the fact that it can keep up, and not only keep up, but pretty much beat a lot of them, depending on the driver, is unbelievable.